Hello everyone! Welcome back to the third episode of Arcane Secrets of the Craft. I'm Angel, and today's episode will be on definitions and entomology. I'd like to apologize first for this episode being 3 weeks late, and there's a really good reason for that, and we'll get to that in just a second. I first want to mention that the prior two episodes you saw to this one were heavily scripted, and they were also heavily edited. And this one's going to be a little bit more off the cuff. I don't have a long script, I just have a couple bullet points, but the reason why I'm mentioning this in the first place is because when I read the definitions, I'm going to read them right off my computer. I didn't memorize them. And I'm telling you this because I don't want it to appear disingenuous. Now, what took me so long? That's a pretty good question, right? Well, this episode took me 3 weeks, more or less, to do the research. I was spending 12 to 16 hours a day, every day, checking the definition and the entomology. Now, I already had most of the definitions done, but what I didn't have was the entomology done for nearly any of them. So, when you do research, you have to check it, and double check it, and then do it all over again. A good piece of advice for you is never trust any one single source of information. Not even me. Never do that. Now, I'll give you a good example. The books over my shoulder to my right, I have on average minimum 3 to 12 books on any given subject because I don't trust any single source, and I suggest you don't either. Okay. I told my students, don't think you know you know. Research it. And like I said before, don't trust any single source. So you should assume I'm wrong. And you should go do research and prove me wrong. Because it will do me proud to prove me wrong. Now, I know every definition I'm giving you is close as to gospel as I can get it. Because I spent so much time working on all of them. But if you can prove me wrong, good for you. I'm not infallible. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't trust anyone. Do it yourself. That's the bonus of being a solitary practitioner. You get to do all the work yourself. It'll take you much longer if you instead of working in a circle or coven or an order, but you will know it better than any of them because you have to do it yourself. And that's the bonus. So the reason why I'm making these videos in the first place is for 2 reasons. This video specifically is because people understand usually the implied definition of words, but not the actual definition. And the second reason is a lot of the words we use can be used somewhat interchangeably, as you will see in about a second. So the reason why you don't want to do this is because when you're trying to have a conversation or you're trying to type or write something or convey whatever message you're trying to convey in whatever form you're trying to convey that message, you want to make sure you're accurate. You want to make sure you're using the correct words for what you're trying to do. And this is also very, very important when it comes to crafting your spells and rituals, but we'll do a whole episode on that later. Okay, I'm going to read the definitions and then I'm going to explain what the definitions mean, just in case they weren't self-explanatory. And you will also be seeing all of the definitions and entomology appear on screen over my left shoulder. Affirmation, definition. The action or thought process of affirming something or a state of mind. Mantra, definition. A sound, word, or phrase repeated frequently to aid concentration in meditation. Prayer, definition. A solemn request for help or an expression of thanks addressed to a deity or an object of worship. Spell and incantation. Definition. Using words or song as a part of a magical ritual or recited formula of words designed to produce a particular effect. Okay, so now some of these words here can be used interchangeably or can be confused for the same thing. My student confused affirmation and incantation for the longest of time. So we're going to start with those. An affirmation is you reaffirming something to yourself. Generally how this works is you get up in the morning, you look yourself in the mirror, I mean dead-eyed in the mirror, and you repeat 3 simple phrases every morning. They could be, for example, I will be successful, I will be wealthy, I will get my promotion. And what that does is it takes these words and then filters them into your conscious mind, to your subconscious mind, and while you're dreaming and while you're not using your conscious mind, it will start to reaffirm these thoughts and focus you to achieve said goal. The incantation, on the other hand, is words being used to affect either yourself, which is why sometimes it can be confused for an affirmation, but more often than not, it's being used to affect someone else or something else. That's why we use your incantation in combination with your ritual to achieve a particular effect or a desired effect. That's the difference. Affirmations work internally. Incantations can work internally, but more often than not work externally. Now, mantra. A mantra can be, as said, a sound, word, or phrase. To give an example of this, Om. Now, Om is a word, but it's more of a sound, which is Om. Okay. Now, that sound is used to help focus and concentrate your mind. As you make this sound repeatedly, you start to go into what is generally known or referred to as a trance. And that will help you achieve a certain goal you may be looking to master in meditation. Perhaps just focus or clearing your mind or finding inner peace. Or perhaps you're working on one of your chakras and there are different sounds or words you can chant that will help you stimulate those chakras. But we'll get much later. But certain incantations can also be confused for mantras because certain incantations can be used as a mantra. To give you an example of an incantation to stimulate your third eye when you're not meditating or to open your third eye would be something like this. You would make a specific hand sign and you would say, sight beyond sight, I see through the shadow and the light. I see the world seen but unseen that lays before me. Now, if you're using this as an incantation when you're out and about in the world, it would help open your third eye to help let you see the unseen. Spirits or ethereal beings are generally outsiders, but you could also use the same incantation as a mantra while meditating on opening your third eye to open your third eye. So this is how incantation and mantra can be synonymous and somewhat interchangeable, but have particular different uses, and to understand and know the difference. And now prayer, on the other hand, is generally not going to be confused for an affirmation, mantra, or an incantation, but you could say to a certain degree a prayer could be used as an incantation, especially if you're using it in the form of a blessing. If you've gone to a church or have a priest or a rabbi or a high priest or priestess give you a blessing, that in essence is an incantation. So they're not meant to be confused, and most people won't confuse them, but there is the little wiggle room in there. Now, most prayers are regimented. In Catholicism, a regimented prayer would be, Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. That's a short but regimented prayer that you would say a certain amount of times on a rosary bead. Now, the other kinds of prayers are just, please God, Goddess, help me, help my family, help something, or thank you for helping me and my family. This would not ever be confused as an affirmation, mantra, or spell or incantation. It's obviously a prayer. So this is why this one is least confused. But the regimented prayers could be also somewhat considered incantations, especially when you get into things like exorcism. But that's a whole other can of worms. Okay. Next group. Amulet. Definition. A small natural object, usually worn, such as a crystal, shell, acorn, or bone, imbued with natural power, to ward off evil or use for protection. Charm. Definition. A charm traditionally consists of a leather pouch stuffed with powders, herbs, spices, and occasionally gemstones for a magical purpose. Fetish. Definition. An object used to imprison, hold, or anchor, most commonly a spirit, on our plane of existence, willingly or unwillingly. Talisman. Definition. A man-made item, usually in the form of a symbol, that is magically charged, imbued, or blessed with an enchantment that is carried or worn on a person. Totem. Definition. A totem is an effigy that contains the sacred spiritual essence of an animal. A totem serves as an emblem of a tribe, clan, family, or individual. Okay. Now, let's start with amulet and talisman. And these two things are commonly, words are used incorrectly. The pendant that I'm wearing around my neck, it would be traditionally considered an amulet. It's a mineral, or you could say a crystal, and it's natural. It has natural powers that are imbued into them through nature, or a god or goddess, or whatever your philosophy might be. Some would disagree with this, as it's been worked and shaved down and leather wrapped, so some might consider that a talisman. But a talisman is traditionally like my cross. It's silver or gold, usually a metal, and it's been forged or poured to create this specific shape. Now, both of these can be blessed, or both of them can be enchanted. My cross is personally blessed and enchanted. And that's the basic difference. One is definitely and completely man-made, and the other is either completely natural or mostly natural. A charm is generally a charm bag, like the definition. The definition is actually spot on. But an example of how to use a charm would be when you make a dream pouch. It's still a charm bag, just filled with a bunch of herbs, possibly with a blessing or incantation on it to help you dream better, or remember your dreams, or sleep peacefully. Any of these things would be useful or interchangeable, but they would all fall into the area of what a charm bag is. Now, a fetish and a totem sometimes get confused for each other because they both contain spiritual essence. Here's the difference. A totem is an effigy, like a statue, but generally made of wood, and it's usually hand-carved. And that has the spirit animal, your spirit animal, and it's just its body in the physical realm of existence to help that spirit communicate with you. Now, your spirit animal is next to you right now, if you realize it or not. But it's there. It's always with us. It's just a matter that most of us don't know how to contact it or speak to it properly. This is done usually through a vision quest. You can do it with a shaman, usually, or someone that specializes in this area, but I don't want to get too far off tangent to a different point. While a fetish, on the other hand, is an object that is used to bind a spirit. Now, the spirit can attach itself to the object itself, making it a fetish, or you can use a binding ritual to bind the spirit or another outsider to that object specifically. And that's the difference. One is letting the spirit help communicate with you and is more of your friend and similar to a familiar. And we'll get to what a familiar is a little bit later. And fetish is usually something where a spirit bound itself to it, or you bound something to it to either remove it from a location and then set it free elsewhere, or just keeping it in its binding and putting it into a binding box because it's just too dangerous to be set free. Glyph. Definition. A carving like a hieroglyph, usually a symbol. Sigil. Definition. A symbol inscribed, drawn, or painted representing someone, a coat of arms, or an idea. Okay, this is the basic difference between a carving, a glyph, and a sigil. A glyph is a carving. So if you have an altar, you had a picture of the Key of Solomon, you would take a hammer and chisel and you would carve it into it. And because a carving is permanent, sigils are drawn or painted, usually on a piece of paper or a wall. You wouldn't generally put a carving right into your wall that you see every day, but you might put a sigil onto it. Sigils are non-permanent, glyphs are permanent. That's the basic difference. Spirit. Definition. The spirit is the mind, emotion, and personality that makes the character of an individual that is an equal but separate part of the soul. Soul. Definition. The soul is the essence, focus of animating life. Okay. What is the difference between these two? Because these two are almost always used interchangeably. There's a big difference. When you see a spirit that's out and about, that's its personality, it's its emotions. That's why you can talk to it, and it can talk back to you and understand you. It's its mind. Not its brain, but its mind. It's the very essence of what it is. The soul comes in at being at the moment of life. Now, minus your individual ideology, is your life started at the moment of conception or the moment of birth? Regardless of that one, doing whichever one your personal ideology falls into, you will still be correct. That's what animates our living, breathing bodies. And when we die, the spirit and the soul become one and then leave the body. Once the soul has left the body in the spiritual form, the body dies. That's the difference. This appears to be a good place to stop the third episode. This is part 1 of probably 4, and we'll pick this up again on the next episode. So I wish you all the best of luck on your research and your practice, and all of you go in peace.